Ever wonder where money really comes from? We're taught from childhood that money is hard-earned, the reward for relentless work and sacrifice. Yet when economic crises hit, central banks seem to conjure billions, poof, out of thin air. What's going on here? Who pays the price for this flood of cash? And what does it mean for your wallet and the global economy? Buckle up, because Boardroom Secrets is about to take you on a wild ride through the hidden world of money creation, a system so intricate and sometimes so absurd, it'll leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. Let's dive in. The tiny slice of cash. When you picture money, you probably imagine crisp bills or shiny coins, tangible stuff you can hold. This is physical money, churned out by government mints like the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing. Sounds straightforward, right? But here's the kicker. Physical cash makes up only 3 to 8% of the money circulating in any economy, depending on the country. Mind-blowing, huh? Most of our money isn't something you can touch. It's digital, existing as numbers on a screen. Physical money's main job, keeping ATMs stocked for your withdrawals. Banks need cash on hand to meet demands, but producing it is dirt cheap. For example, printing a $10 bill costs just 3 cents. The difference, called seigniorage, is pure profit for the government, funneled into public budgets to ease tax burdens. Sounds like a sweet deal, doesn't it? So why not print endless stacks of cash to solve every financial woe? Hold that thought, because the answer unveils a darker truth. The inflation trap. If governments could print money at will, they'd be tempted to fund every promise. New roads, shiny projects, you name it. But here's the catch. Flooding the system with cash triggers inflation. Too much money chasing too few goods drives prices skyward. In extreme cases, you get hyperinflation, where money loses value so fast it's practically worthless. Picture this. In Zimbabwe in 2008, a loaf of bread cost billions of dollars, and people used wheelbarrows of cash to buy groceries. Insane, right? Venezuela and Argentina faced similar nightmares, with money recycled into notebooks or art because it was worth more as paper than currency. Money only works as a stable measure of value when it's created carefully. For centuries, gold anchored money's worth, forcing governments to think twice before printing more. But in 1971, U.S. President Richard Nixon shattered that system, ending the gold standard. Suddenly, the dollar's value hinged on trust alone, not gold. As the world's reserve currency, this shift sent shockwaves globally, making money elastic, its value now tied to confidence, not metal. And that's where things get wild. The invisible money machine, banks and debt. Here's the real shocker. Most money, up to 97% in developed economies, isn't created by central banks or governments. It's born in private banks through a process tied to debt. Yes, debt! When you take out a loan, say $500,000 for a house, the bank doesn't dip into a vault or someone else's savings. They create that money with a few keystrokes. Poof! Your account gets $500,000, and the bank records a matching debt you owe, plus interest. That money enters the economy as you spend it, becoming part of the system. This isn't new. Back in 1704, England's Parliament passed a law recognizing promises to pay as legal money. Today, those promises are digital entries, debts banks create from thin air. This fractional reserve banking system amplifies money creation. Banks keep a small fraction of deposits, historically 10%, and lend out the rest. Those loans get deposited elsewhere, and the cycle repeats, turning $100 into $1,000 or more. Crazy, right? But it gets wilder. In 2020, the U.S. Federal Reserve eliminated reserve requirements, meaning banks can create virtually unlimited money through accounting. This fuels liquidity, but also risks catastrophe if banks bet on shaky investments like derivatives, complex financial bets worth over $1 quadrillion globally, dwarfing the world economy tenfold. Talk about playing with fire. The real estate bubble machine. Why does this matter? Because banks love lending for real estate. Houses are seen as safe bets, low-risk collateral with big profits. When you borrow for a home, the bank creates money, you buy the house, and that money circulates. But as more people borrow, demand spikes and home prices soar. Suddenly, you need bigger loans to afford a house, trapping people in a debt spiral. This fueled massive housing bubbles worldwide. In the US, the 2008 financial crisis exposed the danger. Banks lent recklessly, creating subprime mortgages for buyers who couldn't repay. When defaults surged, the system teetered. And who paid the price? Not just the banks. Taxpayers bailed them out, as governments raised debt ceilings to cover toxic loans. The U.S. debt jumped from $10.6 trillion to $11.3 trillion in 2008 alone, a burden passed to future generations through taxes and inflation. Quantitative easing. Printing money on steroids. Enter quantitative easing, QE, the ultimate money creation tool. Born in Japan in 1989 and supercharged by the U.S. in 2008, QE is when central banks create money to buy assets like government bonds. In 2008, the Fed pumped $700 billion into banks to save them from collapse. Controversial? You bet. Critics called it a bailout for Wall Street, not Main Street. From 1776 to 2008, U.S. debt hit $10 trillion. By 2014, QE pushed it to $14.4 trillion. During COVID-19, the Fed added another $3 trillion in just 3 months. Mind-boggling. This money doesn't come from taxes or savings, it's created from nothing, buying bonds to flood the system with cash. But here's the rub. Central banks can't go broke. They can print endlessly, owning more assets, stocks, bonds, even entire markets. Japan's central bank now holds 80% of its stock market. Switzerland's owns $90 billion in U.S. tech giants like Apple and Google. They're becoming the economy's biggest players. The hidden cost, inequality and fragility. So why doesn't all this money spark runaway inflation in daily life? Because it's not reaching you, it's inflating assets. Stocks and real estate skyrocket, enriching the wealthy who own them. Since the 1980s, the top 1%'s wealth has surged 420%, thanks to policies like QE and low interest rates. The Cantillon effect explains why. New money hits elites first, banks, corporations, investors, letting them buy assets before prices rise. By the time it trickles to you, inflation erodes your purchasing power. Take 2020. 30 million Americans lost jobs, yet the stock market soared, fueled by cheap money. The system rewards the rich, widens inequality, and leaves most struggling. Frustrating, right? Worse, it's fragile. Growth now depends on debt. If borrowing stops or defaults spike, the economy grinds to a halt, as seen in 2008. Central banks step in, printing more, but each round works less, pushing debt onto future generations. The breaking point. What's next? We're at a crossroads. Some predict stagflation, soaring inflation with stagnant growth, like the 1970s, but worse, fueled by unprecedented debt. Others see the dollar losing its throne as global trust wanes. Yet, some argue it'll strengthen as a safe haven in chaos, per the milkshake theory, the last reliable currency in a crumbling world. Alternatives are emerging. Stablecoins promise transparent digital payments. Modern monetary theory, MMT, claims governments can print freely as long as they produce goods, though it's untested and risky. In places like Italy and Venezuela, communities experiment with local currencies to reclaim control. Bold moves, but the real power lies with you. Understanding this system empowers smarter choices. Some hedge with gold, untouchable by central banks. Others dive into crypto, betting on blockchain's future. The daring play the market, investing in assets central banks inflate. Whatever your move, knowledge is your edge. The global financial system is a house of cards, built on debt, trust, and promises. One broken promise could topple it. Boardroom Secrets is here to peel back the curtain, exposing the forces shaping your future. Stay curious, stay sharp, and let's navigate this wild world together.